My channel just hit 4,000 subscribers. So to celebrate, I'm going to answer some questions from the internet, comments people have left on my YouTube, Instagram, etc. So for those of you that don't know me, I am Kendra the Vet Tech. I am a registered veterinary technician and I currently work at Purdue University Teaching Hospital. I was also a licensed veterinary technician in the state of Washington and in total have been in veterinary medicine for almost 10 years at this point. I'm a former Miss Rodeo Kansas State University, two-time first runner-up for Miss Rodeo Kansas, also a certified 4-H dog show judge, and I grew up on a dairy farm in Kansas. Finally, I was valedictorian of my veterinary technology class at Maple Woods Veterinary Technology. My husband made me add all of that stuff. But let's get right down to the questions, and I actually haven't seen any of these before now. All right, so first thing up is to type "is a veterinary technician" into Google and answer the autofill question. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so first is a veterinary technician a good job? I think that it is a fantastic job. It's a labor of love. It really is. You have to really love animals. You have to really want to be a part of the nursing care, surgical care, internal medicine care, whatever it is you're doing for those animals within the scope of veterinary medicine. So I think it's an absolutely fantastic job. Next up, why don't you reply to comments on YouTube? So I am a working mother of two. I now work full-time at this point, and with my two small children and my full-time job, I usually don't have time to get around to YouTube comments that often. If it's a really good comment that I feel like is going to serve the greater good, I typically will try to get back to those if I can. If it's a really common question that I see a lot with the students that I have access to at the teaching hospital. What is the difference between a veterinary technician and a veterinary assistant? This is a little bit of a gray area. The title of veterinary technician is not protected everywhere in the United States, which is also why we have so many different titles that sort of mean the same thing: CVT, LVT, RVT, certified licensed or a registered veterinary technician. So the problem that we have in our industry right now is there is no protection and there is no unified title for all of the veterinary technicians. But for the purposes of me and what I am trying to put forth to the community, a veterinary technician will be someone who holds credentials as a veterinary technician within their state. So they're a person that has a larger scope of practice than a veterinary assistant would. We can perform things like jugular catheterization and other higher level skills within a hospital setting. And a veterinary assistant would be the person who is assisting us with all of these tasks. Usually these people are excellent at restraint. I have met some assistants in my career that are a little bit better than I am at restraining certain animals because this is something they do for us frequently. And then also take care of any other tasks we might need them to do, running samples for us, blood work, things like that. All right, so next up looks like a comment from YouTube on my 6 tips to nail your vet tech interview video. It says, "Good luck nailing your interview. You'll be broke for life without a spouse supporting you or working 2 or more jobs to pay the basics." And then there was a reply to that from another person that said, "Couldn't be more true." So this one is, one that I kind of let go because it's not, they're not wrong. Definitely not wrong. That's something that plagues us as credentialed veterinary technicians in our field is we are very, very underpaid for what it is that we do in the field of veterinary medicine. So a lot of places do pay very poorly. To be 100% transparent, we are a one-income household with my job as a registered veterinary technician supporting our household, so my family with 2 children. It can be done. You might have to move for it to go somewhere, bigger place, referral facility, emergency. Small animal does typically tend to pay more than large animal does just because we're localized in a small clinic setting and the technicians can be utilized more highly working on multiple different patients with the DVM. So it's not a wrong thing to say, but kind of a little bit of a doom and gloom thing to say because there are places out there that do pay pretty well. Was it hard to start a YouTube channel? I don't think it's hard to start a YouTube channel in today's world. You can pretty much start anything you want on YouTube these days. I think the hard thing for me was deciding what I wanted to put out there for the world to see and deciding that I had value and I have valuable things to say for people within veterinary medicine. So I think the hard part for me was all internal and being able to just put myself out there for people to make comments like the previous comment that I don't necessarily agree with and be able to move on with my life from there. So not hard, but sometimes it's a little bit hard to narrow down your thoughts and your ideas to be able to be concise and get them out there. What is your favorite thing about your job? I do so many things, and I think my favorite thing right now is I focus solely on large animal medicine, and I love that. When I first started out, I really wanted to be in mixed animal practice because I liked having the variety, but the more I'm in this field, the less I want to do things like work with angry cats and dogs. I will take an angry horse any day over an angry cat and dog. Angry cow, yes, sign me up, over an angry cat. But I think my absolute favorite thing that I do is placing IV catheters. I don't know what it is about doing that. It is just forever and will always be my favorite thing to do. Another, looks like comment from YouTube here. Says, hi, I have a question about getting hired as an assistant veterinary technician position without having related work experience. I've owned multiple sport horses over 10 years and traveled the circuit, just haven't done horse showing from a professional side, always as an owner. But I have lived and understanding the circuit life, and I'm well suited for the work and understand the need for discretion and regular 12-hour work days. What specific things should my cover letter and related skills emphasize? Okay, well, first off, you should not have the understanding that you need to have 12-hour work days. While that is common in human nursing to do 12-hour work days, that is not common in veterinary medicine. So if you're in a general practice clinic, you might do something like 5/8s because they're usually open Monday through Friday, or even 4/10s. That's what I've done in my professional life up to this point is 4/10s. So number one, I would not say 12-hour work days are something you should go in with an understanding that's what's going to happen. You may have on call, so you might have 12-hour work days, but I wouldn't expect that as an everyday thing. So a specific thing that your cover letter should do, and in my experience doing some hiring, one thing that kind of really drove me nuts is in our resume, we have lots of different things that we've maybe done in veterinary medicine, but then our cover letter is something totally different that doesn't expound on any of those skills or experiences that you've had. So I would say that in your cover letter, you need to really emphasize those skills that you have related to animal care and handling if you don't have any specific veterinary medicine experience. Really go into detail on your animal handling, care, and experience that you have with that in your cover letter. Please do not just look up a cover letter on Google and copy and paste it. We know that's exactly what you did. It has no personal detail in it at all. So definitely spell those things out in your cover letter. Related skills to emphasize would definitely be any restraint and animal handling skills that you have. If you have given medications to animals before, you're familiar with maybe giving bute and Banamine within a barn setting, you could write those things down. We would definitely make sure we go over any of those things with you. Might even not be administering those medications if you're an assistant position. Depends on the clinic. But definitely write down any of those experiences you have as well. Other things, organization skills are always a big plus for us when we're working in vet med or even out on trucks. Things like that are definitely really important to emphasize in cover letter and related skills that you might have. A lot of times we forget those kind of soft skills and focus really on the animal skills, but you need to be able to communicate with clients, maybe even answering phones depending on the clinic, and be able to take verbal direction really well. So all of those things are really good things to include in resumes and cover letters. How did you learn so much about handling horses and other large animals? Well, like I mentioned before, I did grow up on a dairy farm, so I was very familiar with behavior and managing cattle. Dairy cattle are very different from beef cattle, but a lot of the skills do translate. Dairy cattle are handled very frequently, so they're much more docile, generally speaking, and easier to work with and handle. So you just take all those skills and apply them to a beef cow that you know is crazy and might try to kill you, so you just be a little more cautious. So the cattle Cattle was already pretty well ingrained when I came to this. I'd started dabbling in horses when I was in 4th or 5th grade was when I got my first horse and just worked up my horsemanship skills from there. But I will say that it is very different, and I think that that's something that people don't expect or take into consideration when they move into large animal medicine. You know, they always say, well, I've handled horses forever and I can do this and I can do that. But a lot of times what gets overlooked is a lot of the horse handling that people have done are their own personal horses. So you're very familiar with that horse's behavior and what they're going to do in any given situation. And you have to remember in vet med, we're dealing with horses that we've probably never seen before. So we don't know how they're going to react. And they have also, some of them, have developed behaviors where they might be adverse to veterinarians or veterinary technicians or assistants. They know that when we come there, they might get poked with a needle every time we come there. And so they become adverse to us handling them or adverse to 2 people handling them because they know what happens then. So what I would say is if you are coming into vet med and you don't have any experience with large animals in a vet med setting, just be very humble and be very flexible and very willing to learn, because the way that we work with animals in veterinary medicine is very different with you working with your own animals at home. What are some future goals you have with your job/career field? So, breaking hot off the presses news here for everyone. I actually, over the course of the next 1.5 years, will be working very hard to obtain my Veterinary Technicians Specialist Equine Veterinary Nursing credentials. So this is something I've just decided within the last month. I have my little group of people to support me with this, and we are moving forth. And just today, actually, I got a large chunk of my skills list signed off, and it was very humbling to have that done because I struggle with imposter syndrome quite a lot. And so to be this far into my career and realize that I'm ready for this and that there are people supporting me and telling me that I'm ready for this, I'm really excited to see what the future holds going down this path for me. Another comment off of YouTube. Does specializing actually help you make more money if you pick up a VTS, which is what I just mentioned? A VTS is the acronym for Veterinary Technicians Specialist. There are several different subsets. Last time I checked, there were 12, maybe 13 different specialist categories that you could pick to be a part of. Takes a lot of work. Like I said, I'll be working on mine over the course of the next 1.5 years. And you have to have so much experience working up to that. So to do the one that I picked, the equine veterinary nursing, you have to have at least 5 years as a registered or credentialed veterinary technician to even start the application process. So in the end, yes, you will make more money if you pick up a VTS. Again, this will be dependent on the clinic that you decide to work for. Some clinics will value that experience more than others and that credentialing more than others. So choose wisely in your job after that, and it takes a lot of work to get there. What injuries have you gotten from animals on the job? So I do sport this lovely scar on my forearm, and I've had that for several years. That's my big one that I have. That was actually from a dog toenail trim. I remember it very vividly. I was restraining a blue heeler Australian cattle dog, which is actually coincidentally my favorite breed of dog. And they were just really not having it. And I heard this rip, and the dog had scratched down my right arm. And I thought the rip was the undershirt that I was wearing. And I didn't think anything of it. We carried on. And then once all was said and done, there was just blood running down my arm into my shirt. And the rip that I had heard was actually my skin getting ripped. And so that's the worst evidence I have of on the job. I haven't really had any other major run-ins so far, knock on whatever wood is around me here, just minor bumps and bruises. I constantly have bruises all over my body, and my husband's always like, where did that come from? Very offended, I don't think realizing I work with large animals, and bruises are just kind of part of the job description sometimes. So nothing major yet, full stepped on toes, but I don't think I've had an adult large breed horse step on a toe yet. What is your favorite YouTube video you have made? Hands down, my favorite YouTube video so far has been my IV catheter video. It's the one that's gotten the most hits and gotten me the most views, but it is my absolute favorite. And I think it really speaks to me in my heart because I remember when I was first learning to place IV catheters, I just could not wrap my mind around what they were telling me when, oh, well, you burred it. Oh, you went through the backside, saying all these things that I mentioned in my video. And I just could not, it took me forever to wrap my mind around this because I'm a very visual learner. And then once I figured this out, this Foley catheter trick to be able to see what's happening, it just revolutionized my world. And I just needed to share it with everybody that I could. So definitely my favorite video so far. I have a lot of second place favorites, though. I love the ones that I made at Salt Creek Ranch with my very good friend Carol and her lovely horses. I had a great time shooting those. I did a couple with my dad with some sheep handling and some pig handling, and I love those just because people close to me were part of those videos, and I always love getting my hands dirty with animals. So those are definitely close seconds, all of those videos. What are you working on now? Right now, I'm really focusing hard on my podcast and trying to get those up. I love doing the podcast videos on Zoom and being able to interact face to face with my guests on my podcast. And so I'm trying to share the love on that too, because I feel like there's so much lost just in the airwaves when you can't see our faces. So I'm trying to get those on my YouTube channel as well. This year, season 4 of my podcast. And I'm really enjoying that. And I can also share some pictures. I've done some case reports with my working friend Molly and been able to show some really cool pictures on those case reports. And I'm really enjoying that as well. I do have the last small animal video I have in the pipeline, which is oral radiographs, working on finishing that up. Also some techniques similar to what I just talked about on my IV catheter video, where it just wasn't registering in my mind until I could see it on this clear jaw and see exactly what it meant and the problems I was running into. So looking forward to getting that out there. And then also working on some jugular catheter suturing techniques for equine, and thinking about doing an over-the-wire catheter placement video as well, just because, again, I'm a visual learner and reading it in textbooks and seeing in pictures didn't do me any justice until I actually got into referral practice and started doing this myself about a year ago. All right, another YouTube comment. Can you give an IV injection the same direction you draw blood in? You certainly can. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just when we give injections, the gold standard that we're taught in school is to have the needle go down because that's the direction of the blood flow. And also, if you disconnect the needle from the syringe and put it down in the vein, the idea is once you take the occlusion off of the vein, you won't have any blood coming out of that needle, and you're 100% sure that you're in the jugular vein because the blood pressure would be, or the blood flow would be going the other way. Sometimes in horses that have a little higher blood pressure, you will get some slow, very slow drip, even if your needle's going down with the flow of the blood. So yeah, you can. Either way, doesn't really matter. What animals are you scared of? And a story. Oh my gosh. I don't know that I'm really true. Okay, I'm deathly okay. Maybe I am. Yes. Okay. It's not an animal I work with anymore. I am irrationally terrified of snakes. Irrationally. There's no story as to why I'm scared of snakes. It is just it's just me. I am irrationally terrified. So when I used to I worked in a Banfield when I was going through vet tech school. I worked at the Liberty location just northeast of Kansas City, and there was a veterinarian there that saw exotics. And inevitably, the snakes that would come in to be sold in the PetSmart that the Banfield was inside of, they would get sick and need tube fed, a little bit of nursing care. It never failed, never, ever, ever failed. I'm pretty sure the doctor and all the staff were in on this, that, they would all go to lunch. All the other assistants and technicians would go to lunch on Sundays and leave poor little Kendra alone with the exotics DVM over lunch. And he would always want to tube the snakes then. So I'd have to put my big girl pants on and try really, really hard not to cry. And I was holding the snake, and then while I'm holding it, it was wrapping its body around my arm. And I'm trying not to squish the snake. I'm trying not to vomit. I'm trying not to drop the snake. I'm trying to not hyperventilate, nice deep breaths while the snake is wrapping its body around my arm. And the DVM is laughing at me, and we have like 2 or 3 snakes to get through. So that's my terrified of animals in vet med story that I will never, ever forget. What is your favorite podcast episode you have done? Oh gosh, I don't know how many episodes I'm up to now. 46 episodes at this point, and they all just kind of run together. I've enjoyed so many of them because what surprised me the most about the credentialed technicians I've talked to over the course of the podcast is just the zest and the love they have for whatever it is they're doing in veterinary medicine, and I always feel so invigorated after all of the conversations. But I think my favorite episode so far was episode 1 of this year, where Molly, my counterpart at Purdue, started working with me, and we broke into doing a case report then, and we just had such great conversation. We are ships passing in the night right now, but we had some great insight from both sides of me as a treatment technician taking care of her post-op surgical patients, and her as the surgical technician and what she sees from her side, and just having a great talk about our past, present, and futures, and then breaking into a case report. And I had some great feedback from that episode, and I think it really turned a corner for me this year going into season 4. Another YouTube comment. I am online for vet assistants. It's very cringing to me to see a needle go under the skin, so I'm trying to prepare for it, but doing work as a vet assistant, do assistants do catheters, draw blood, and give vaccines? The answer is yes. Veterinary assistants can give vaccinations, certain vaccinations, and they can do periphery catheters. So not the central catheters for a jugular, but they can do periphery, so in the legs. This also does vary by state. So certain states, again, like I mentioned earlier in this video, we don't have standardized scope of practice for credentialed veterinary technicians, and that goes for veterinary assistants as well, unfortunately. So it depends on the state you're in, what those states' laws are, and what uncredentialed staffing or veterinary assistants can perform. So if you are squeamish, definitely let everybody know up front that you're maybe a little bit squeamish, not used to this, so we can have a backup handy to take over if you start feeling a little faint. It's totally fine. What is the biggest problem with veterinary medicine as it concerns veterinary technicians, in your opinion? In my opinion, I have stated this very clearly throughout the video: credentialing, standard scope of practice, and standard titling. Hands down, I think this is the biggest problem we're facing, because everybody and their brother right now can call themselves a vet tech, and there's not really any consequence for that. And so unfortunately, what that breeds is no one actually knows what a credentialed veterinary technician is. They don't understand that we have to go, in most states, I think there's 3 states right now that you can still do on-the-job training, but in the majority of the states, you have to go to an AVMA accredited program, you have to graduate from that program, and then you have to sit for the Veterinary Technician National Exam, which is an exam over basic medical knowledge, saying that you can enter the field now as an entry-level credentialed veterinary technician. Also, if your state requires the credentialing and they track the credentialing, then you have to pass their state law exam, saying that you're familiar with the laws within your state and your scope of practice. So I think that this is the biggest problem with us right now, is no standardized title or scope of practice. And then that also breeds the low pay. The problem that we have keeping people in this field with the low pay is people don't understand. A lot of DVMs don't understand how highly they can utilize a credentialed veterinary technician. From the internet question, what are the typical working hours for a veterinary technician? That varies widely. It depends on what type of practice you're going to go into. So before I worked here, I spent all my time in general practices. I mentioned Banfield when I was there. I worked over the weekends because that's how I could work full-time and stay in school. So at a practice like that, you would have, I think they're open like 7 to 7 generally, long hours on Saturday as well, and then they're open part of a day on Sunday. So it depends on what type of practice you're going into, what hours are they offer. If you're going to emergency, plan on working overnights because they're going to be open 24/7. So you would have some overnight shifts in there. I'm sure that either you would be constantly assigned to or rotated through. If you work in large animal medicine or at a referral practice, you might even have on call. So typical working is 5/8s or 4/10s. And then it just kind of varies from there. Some places do mimic human industry and do 12s. So just depends on what type of practice you're looking to work in. What made you decide to write a book? So if you don't know, if you haven't seen, I have a veterinary telephone triage flip book that I put out. And that was kind of what created Kendra the Vet Tech, the impetus for moving forward with this identity. And what I found was working throughout practices, we hire veterinary receptionists and we don't expect them to have any practice or any experience at all in veterinary medicine. And it creates a very large divide because we say you don't have to have any experience, but then we don't give them the tools necessary to be able to effectively gather information on the phone for us so that we know as veterinarians or veterinary staff what we're walking into with this appointment. So drawing on my experience before this in my previous career working in law enforcement as a dispatcher, in some agencies, they have these flip books where you can, especially for medical emergencies, some dispatchers are trained to do both. They have this flip book where you can go through and it tells you exactly what to ask so you can tell the medical response team the answers to these respective questions. So I decided to do that for veterinary medicine. So I've created this little flip book for the common problems that we see. You're not going to find every single problem in there, but the common problems that we see in small animal medicine only. And then I also have a mixed animal practice version as well for small and large animal. So now you can purchase this for your clinics, for your reception staff, and they can be better prepared to ask all the right questions to lead you into that appointment with as much information as you can have to start an appointment with.
Where can they purchase that if they want to?
You can purchase that at kendrathevettech.com, my website, and I'll get you out I do really recommend that you get the paperback copy, but I just recently released the ebook copy on Kindle for small animal practice. What is the craziest case or work incident that you've experienced? Oh my gosh. So, people always ask us these things, and I have seen a lot of banana stuff over the course of a lot of years. And when I'm put on the spot like this, I never ever remember any of the crazy pants things I've done. Since I've been in referral practice, I've seen so many crazy things, from gastric impaction that was so hard that we had to leave an NG tube in the horse and then run Coca-Cola, flat Coca-Cola, caffeine-free, sugar-free Coca-Cola from fluid bags tied up on the fluid lines, run it as a constant rate infusion through the NG tube into the horse's stomach. That was a really crazy thing that I've been a part of. So many other wild things, but that's the one I have off the top of my head. And that is it for today's Q&A for my 4,000 subscriber special. When I started this back in 2020, I was absolutely floored that I had at least 50 people that wanted to hear what I had to say. So I am just so humbled and grateful. Thank you everyone for helping me get up to 4,000 subscribers on YouTube. So absolutely comment with any of your questions below. I will answer as many as I can, and then we'll see you again at 5,000. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching Kendra the Vet Tech. See you later.